Hi everyone, my name is Ariel Niedermeyer. I'm an astrologer and I'm here to give you your June 2021 astrological forecast. Thanks for joining me again and happy Gemini season. Gemini is the sign of curiosity, information, I don't know, being like a great jack of all trades, multitasker, just super inquisitive, outgoing social butterfly energy. And I think that light and brightness is something that all signs stand to benefit from and learn from. So today, I want to talk about three main aspects. We're going to talk about the Mercury retrograde in Gemini from May 29th to June 22nd, the solar eclipse in Gemini on June 10th, and finally the Saturn-Uranus square on June 14th. So let's get started. Okay, so we have a Mercury retrograde. It's nothing to fear, I promise. I feel like everyone's always so like, oh no. Retrogrades of any planet are a wonderful time to review, revise, and recalibrate your approach depending on the planet and the sign it's in. So Mercury is the planet of communication. Gemini is the sign of communication. And in fact, Gemini is the home sign of Mercury. So when that planet is in that sign, it's super strong and there's like a huge focus on communication. So we've had Mercury in Gemini for the last month or so, and like you probably have noticed that it's just been really noisy. Whatever realm of life, whatever house Gemini falls in your chart, and again, you're gonna wanna use like astro.com or CoStar app to look at your chart and see where Gemini falls. It's probably felt really activated of late. I can definitely speak for myself. Gemini falls in my 10th house, and I just feel like it's been so busy in a good way, but my business, my work, everything's super busy right now, very noisy. But that being said, so when Mercury is in Gemini, it's really strong. When that energy is retrograde, so kind of turned inward, there's going to be this really big focus on recalibrating your communication in a certain realm of life. So if Gemini falls in your first house of self, then it'll be self-talk. How do you talk to yourself? Is it negative or positive? If it's in your third house, it'll be communication with your siblings or your neighbors or people who feel like siblings, friends that feel like siblings. So that kind of gives you an idea of like how this is going to show up. And usually what happens is that around the beginning of the retrograde, so end of May, beginning of June in this case, something will happen, something annoying usually, that will illuminate an area of communication that you could just up level a little bit, that you just need to recalibrate a little bit in the name of personal growth and development and higher alignment. And then you'll have the entire retrograde period, so for most of June until June 22nd, to do that revision work. With Gemini, because it's an air sign, and so there's this focus on objectivity and especially rationality, you might lean on communication that's super clear, direct, and perhaps uses like facts and figures, data. So you want to lean towards communication that's objective versus subjective. So not the way it felt when they said that, but like what they actually said. That's like a small little example to use. And I find that when a retrograde happens, like in a sign like Gemini, making lists of like the details of things might help with like situations of misinformation or misinterpretation, but just like really lean on the facts, keep it super clear. Okay, let's talk about the solar eclipse in Gemini on June 10th. So we are definitely in eclipse season. We just had a total lunar eclipse in Sagittarius in May. So how eclipses work is that if you have an eclipse in one sign, you're going to have another eclipse in the opposite sign. So we had a lunar eclipse in Sagittarius, so we'll have a solar eclipse in Gemini, which is Sagittarius's opposite sign. And lunar eclipses, just to give some review, lunar eclipses are really activated full moons. They're related to the full moon. Solar eclipses are like activated new moons. So lunar eclipses are end of chapters. Solar eclipses are new beginnings. And so you're going to have a new beginning in the area of your life ruled by Gemini. So lots going on in Gemini. Yeah, and with solar eclipses, like lunar eclipses tend to be marked by more internal emotional shifting. Solar eclipses, it's like more external and linear. So you'll like see things kind of blossom in your life in a very literal way. Something to keep in mind too, with every ending there is or with every beginning there is an ending. That's something really to keep in mind with eclipses. So there's going to be a blossoming in the area of your life ruled by Gemini in the house ruled by Gemini, and there's going to be a fading of things, perhaps in the area of life marked by Sagittarius, which is the opposite sign, which makes sense because we just had a lunar eclipse, which was the end of chapters. So I'll use my chart as an example because I actually used it for the total lunar eclipse, which that's Sagittarius. So I spoke last month about how the lunar eclipse was the end of this chapter around me finding a really rooted, settled home, because Sagittarius falls in my 4th house of home, family, and roots. And so with the lunar eclipse happening in the 4th house, it means that I've come to an end of this journey of really finding a home and building a home for myself, which is this apartment. And feeling really settled in the city that I live in, which is San Francisco. Okay, so we have a solar eclipse happening in the opposite sign of Gemini. Gemini falls in my 10th house, which is opposite from the 4th house. So while the 4th house is your private home life, the 10th house is your career public life. So now that I've really settled in my home, I've got all this space to blossom in my career. You've got to root down to grow. That's sort of how the 4th and the 10th house works. So I expect that with this solar eclipse, it's just going to be, I'm kind of hesitant because I feel like it's already been so busy, but it's just going to be more, new business ventures, new projects, new partnerships, and I'm excited. But yeah, so with every blossoming, there is a fading, and just kind of notice where those energies are taking you and how there's kind of like a letting go so that you can grasp this new thing. And if you have questions about eclipses, I really love using them to help people get an understanding of like the energies in their life that are kicking off these like periods of like these critical periods of growth. So please DM me on Spot the Witch on Instagram. That's spot.the.witch. And if you have questions about your chart, I'm happy to answer them via DM. So don't hesitate. Or if this was confusing at all, if you have follow-ups, just please DM me. Okay. Last but not least, let's talk about the Saturn-Uranus square on June 14th. So this is actually the second of a series of 3 squares of this same aspect. So Saturn is the planet of tradition, restrictions, limitation, entrenched systems and structures. Uranus is the planet of innovation, revolution. It's really that iconoclastic energy, like we're going against like tradition. So these 2 planets going head to head in a very confrontational 90-degree angle with each other means that there will be challenges to entrenched systems. So the first time we had these 2 planets square off like this was February 2021, right around the time that the GameStop fiasco, if you remember it, happened. So like a bunch of Reddit users banded together, bought a bunch of shares of GameStop, pushed up the price, which really kind of challenged the entrenched system of Wall Street. We could see something like that again around June 14th. So yeah, on a micro level, it's just going to be entrenched systems in your life that are going to be challenged. So where this square is going to happen is in the house in your chart that's ruled by Taurus. So again, you're going to look at your chart. If Taurus falls in your 4th house of home and family, then you might find that you really want to move and just travel for a while. Like you don't want to be restricted by a lease or a mortgage. If you have Taurus in your 11th house of friends, then you might find your current friendships and community really restrictive and want to break free and like make new friends. But just notice how the energies are coming up. Maybe look back to February 2021 for an idea of how this first expressed in your life. And again, we're going to have a 3rd square of this cycle in December. So maybe don't make any brash, bold decisions or take any brash, bold actions. And like if these themes are still at play in December, you can make those changes then. But just be curious to what comes up and notice. Okay, and last but not least, I just wanted to say happy summer solstice. The solstice is on June 20th. So it'll be the longest day of the year in terms of light. And it also coincides with when the sun enters into Cancer. And also, actually, Jupiter will be making this really lovely trine to the sun the day of the solstice. So it's going to be a really sweet day of appreciation for like the sources of support in your life. Cancer is the archetype of the mother and of our ancestors, and just really like, you know, acknowledging and appreciating like your roots would be lovely at that time. It's gonna feel really sweet, so it'll be nice. And finally, I just want to say too also that this video marks a year of me doing these forecast videos for Altosphere, and I wanted to say thank you all for tuning in with me and joining me on this journey of using astrology for self-discovery. It's been like such a lovely part of my practice, and I've really loved making these videos, and so I hope that you guys are getting as much as I do from it in terms of the content. So that being said, if this was helpful for you, please like and share it. You can catch me on Instagram on Spot the Witch. I really appreciate you being here and always joining me, and have a lovely June, and I'll see you in July.